sit and then make a portrait of him. That was it. And then I left. So I think now he said I made a good impression.
You've
So
made a good impression. This is where I want to interject my part, which is
yes.
he it's 4 o'clock in the morning, and I was splitting. I had a home in Seattle and in San Francisco, and I was in my bed in San Francisco, and I looked at my phone with one eye because it's 4 in the morning, and I see Brannan's name, and I'm like, oh, buddy. And sometimes he calls me early because he's normally in New York. And so I'm like, he forgot that I'm in Seattle or in San Francisco right now. And so I'll call him later. The phone rings again. And so he's calling me twice. I'm like, he really wants to talk to me about something. And I'm like, oh, dude, do you know it's like 4:30 in the morning for me? And he's like, yeah, but you know what? I don't even care because I'm in Ghana right now. And, I was just connected with this amazing photographer named Paul. And Paul saw us originally on the internet together. And there's just something really special about this guy. And I want to find a way for us all to stay connected. So go back to sleep. I just wanted to tell you we were thinking about you halfway across the world. And so apparently you walked away after photographing him, and he immediately called me, and he's like, literally, I'm standing in the town square in what city was it? Accra?
It was Accra, so it was in the
Okay,
University of Ghana. So
that's
then
right.
Brandon was like, "I'm interested. Come, let's sit and talk." And I'm like, "Okay, if Brandon is calling you to come and sit and talk, that's like it's great." So we sat, he talked, we talked, and then funny enough, I had my laptop in my bag. So he asked that, "Can I see some of your works?" So I just pulled my laptop out and then showed him some of the work, and it's like, "You good? This is good work." I'm like, I mean, it's like I was like, okay, fine. If you're saying it's good, I'll accept that. I know. So then he was like, why? So what's your plans? Do you want to be published or do you want to make money out of it? So I think exactly I told him money will always come, but putting my work out there was more important than the money. And then,
Wow.
yes, so that's one of the, I remember exactly telling him that. And then he asked me, how did I become a photographer? And I told him, oh, through Creative Life, watching Creative Life every now and then. He's like, oh, do you know Chase Jarvis? I was like, yes, I know Chase Jarvis. I watch his podcast. I know every person who has been on the show. I can tell you all that he stands for. And I told him I became a photographer. I started doing personal projects because of Chase Jarvis, because Chase Jarvis was talking about personal projects. And so I think when I became a photographer, I saved money and then started doing a lot of personal projects. I never had hopes of publishing works. I never knew what the portfolio would do for me or the personal projects would do for me. But I mean, I was like, okay, somebody from the industry who's successful is talking about personal projects, so I guess maybe probably that's the way forward. But then again, as I kept doing it, I realized that my vision was clear. I knew what I wanted to do, and it explored me through various means because I did weddings, I did events, I did everything. But my personal project was personal to me, and I really enjoyed it.
I think there's so much wisdom in that process that you just shared. And for anyone watching, remember, we're talking, this is 2017. Paul had zero experience with a camera, sold his phone in order to buy a camera, in order to have a shot at taking some pictures. And the first opportunity when you were given to show your portfolio to someone who, uh, could really recognize talent and, and sent you back with this note like you have real aptitude.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's so much value in the leap that you had to make in order to start. You had to start doing something instead of nothing, right? Because there was a time
Yeah.
when you were thinking about photography and not taking action. And so I want to, call attention to that for anyone who's listening or watching. And then the second part about personal projects, which it I can't praise you enough. And if I don't know if you caught what Paul said there, again, it was you were photographing weddings, photographing portraits, doing all of the things that you needed to do in order to pay the bills. But with all of your extra money, you use those to sink into personal projects. And what were some of those personal projects? And, what's an example of something you spent your own money on in an attempt to create work that you wanted someone else ultimately to hire you for, rather than weddings or other portraits? What kind of projects were you undertaking with your own money?
So based on the weddings, the events, I was saving money, and so for me, it was more of what can I do different? What can I do different? I constantly was asking myself, what can I do different? What can I differentiate myself from the pack of photographers in Ghana, in Africa, So constantly, that was what I was looking for. So what I did was I saved money, bought a ticket, one ticket to East Africa, and I started researching. So about 6 months, 5 months, I started researching on stories which are unique, which the media is not reporting on, which the narrative of Africa is different. So one of the first projects I did was a village with no men in Kenya. It was a group of women who they've been abused. They've been traditionally, culturally, they've not been supported enough by their husband because of diaries, and so they formed their own village where men are not allowed. So people constantly ask me why were men not allowed in that village. Is because of that, because the dairy was expensive, so men saw them as properties. So they formed their own village and a supporting village, a community. So even today, if you look at other things, people will say feminism is in the Western side, or a community for women, or championing women were on the other side. But this is a typical story which shows that a lot of people in that side of the world were doing what were not seen and was not in the media today.
Yeah, I love your passion chasing stories that you were aware were not being told elsewhere. And whether you're a documentary photographer like Paul chasing that story, or this applies to anyone, right? Like, what is a way that you can stand out and do something that others are not? And this is not a requirement, but this is a part of the creative process, because so many of us want to, stand out and differentiate ourselves, but we're unwilling to take a risk. And I've said this so many times, you can't stand out and fit in at the same time. And so your willingness to spend your own money to go to East Africa to photograph this village, this community of women only, a feminist community in Africa. Would you say that was one of the things that, when you completed that project, or during the process of creating that, how did it make you feel? Did you learn something along the way? What did you learn about personal work in general?
One, I think the risks part, that's what you're talking about. People are not willing to take risks. People love to be in their comfort zone, and the comfort zone will never get you the results. Look at me. I've never been to East Africa at that point. I don't know Kiswahili. I don't know the people over there. I don't know anybody in that section of Kenya. I knew somebody in the city, Nairobi. So why would I do that at the expense of going around Ghana, taking pictures everybody's taken? Was comfortable doing that in Ghana, but then I learned a lot. How to even find a fixer, how to find the best place to get the food, how to even communicate with the people. And this is me, who has never done a project before, a documentary project before. So now today, if you look back, I look back and now people are talking about these things. I've done that. In my first year, I was going to places nobody wanted to go. I was that National Geographic photographer with no support, showing up at a village. Think about it, a village with no men. How do I get in? How do I talk my way through? How do I express myself? Even they don't speak English and I don't speak their language. So how do you navigate through that? How do you find the best hotel around? So how do you even find somebody who can translate? And even how do you even tell the story? For me, it was like, how do I tell the story? It's years of months of preparation, months of research, visual research, months of planning, and anything can go wrong. And that's the part people, every time I tell this story, is like, I did not know who to publish this story, pitch the story to. I did not know how to pitch a story. I did not know that somebody would be even interested. But the point was that I wanted to do it. That's all I cared. Whether people were interested or not, I wanted to see a vision. I wanted to learn through this process that will help my career. And people in the beginning discouraged me. A lot of people, I lost friends. I lost good friends in the process because people were like, documentary photography, how can you survive with documentary photography? Wedding is great, do wedding. But the satisfaction, the fulfillment was what is important to me. And I saw that. I knew photographers who have come through creative life, and I saw their work, and I was like, I want to be better than this person. I want to get here. I want to be that National Geographic photographer. I want to get there. So for me, that drive, because one day I remember in one village, I was nearly beaten up because the people didn't want me to tell their stories of the women and other people there. How do I talk through that? And these are some of the risks in the beginning I took, which people, so now people saw my work, and I was different from every Ghanaian photographer. Wow. And that is how I think people started recognizing my work.
Yeah, that I think there's so much beauty in it. Was actually your willingness to go and do the thing, and you said it very clearly, right? With you didn't have a plan, you didn't know where to pitch a story, you didn't know the end use, and so many times I think everybody wants the entire map like laid out clear for them. Yeah. But what I loved about your story, the first time I heard it initially from Brannan, and then you and I got on the phone not long after that, and I'll never forget that call. It was just so heartfelt and earnest. But that process of pursuing what was passionate for you ultimately was the thing that helped you stand out from every other photographer in Ghana. Now, this is where the story takes an interesting twist, because what you'll come to know about Paul and his work is that he was not just satisfied with telling stories of East Africa to Ghana. You had set your ambitions a little bit higher. So I'm wondering, we've talked a little bit about how you got your first camera and some of your first personal work that helped get you recognized as a documentary photographer in Ghana, telling stories that were, other people were afraid to tell. But tell us about sort of your next ambition and what unfolded next in your journey.
So I am very determined and hardworking person. I'll be honest. I started my first company at the age of 20, grew the company up to, at the age of 20, I was still in school, first year in school. And I grew the company up whilst I was a student. I was printing, designing in my dormitory. So I knew that if I want to do something, I want to do it. No matter how people discourage me, I knew. And every time I tell people that, even now being in New York, I tell people that I know where I come from, I know who I am, and I know where I'm going. So if I know my past, my present, and my future, why would your opinion matter to me? Why will your criticism or whatever is important to me? Because I know where I'm coming from. And this fuels me, keeps me going every now and then. So for me, I had a checklist. On my wall, I had New York, International Center of Photography, Eddie Adams, National Geographic, and I wasn't interested in awards. In the beginning, I promised myself that I would not apply for any awards for 3 years. Why? Because I wanted to shoot from my heart. I wasn't interested in recognition. I wasn't interested in fame. I wasn't interested in any kind of glory which would take me away and would give me a sense of different of why I go and shoot pictures. I go take pictures. Why I wake up in the morning, take my camera out and take pictures. It wasn't just about the money. It wasn't just about the awards. I wasn't interested in that. I was really interested in being a visual storyteller. So I had my checklist and I knew how. So funny enough, 3 months after I bought my camera. I got into ICP. The first project, 3 months. The first project, 2017. So when I was in Kenya documenting the village with no men, I got an email from the head of the program that I got into ICP. And I was like, wow.
And for those who don't know, ICP is the International Center for Photography in New York, which is a very prestigious film or photography academy. And my understanding was that you had submitted and shared some work with them shortly after buying your camera, and that it was while you were doing this job and just returned that you'd heard that work, also other personal work, had caught the attention of ICP. And so, sorry, pick up your story. Just I wanted to give a little clarity for anyone who didn't know that this prestigious location in New York had reached out to you.
Yeah, so they gave me partial scholarship, and I was like, no way I can afford the rest of the tuition. So as my excitement was short-lived, it was like, okay, you've given me this part of the tuition reduction, but I cannot afford. I just started photography, and this is what. But then I was so determined because it was different from me learning on YouTube, learning from Creative Life of telling stories, but I wanted to be part of a community. I wanted to be in a different environment to see or to know how, because my background is like how I became how I was interested in storytelling was my grandparents were traditional rulers, so they were passing on oral histories from generation to generation. So they felt I need to hear about my tradition, about the Asante tribe war with the British colony and all that, So growing up, that was the burning desire. So I didn't recognize it. So I was looking for, how do I tell stories from A to Z? How do I do that? So even the pictures, how do I sync them together? How pitch? So I knew I met a photographer in Ghana because mostly I was assistant for photographers, fixing them in Ghana. So I met one who was a graduate of ICP. So then I was like, okay, I want to be in ICP. So that was the first time ahead of ICP. Then now, 3 years down the line, I just graduated last month from ICP.
So I want to fill in a little bit of color. And so again, ICP is not cheap. Right? So despite having, this, receiving a note from them and getting an offer to attend on partial scholarship, how were you able to get from Ghana to where you are now, which is sitting in your apartment in New York?
So when I met Brandon, I told him the same thing. He asked me, what do I want to do? So I gave him all, because that's the point. I knew what I wanted to do. And that's what you have to know, so that if you need somebody to help you, or you want somebody to help you, you have to be prepared. When I met Brandon, I had a body of work. Whether I knew everything about it or not, it didn't matter. I had a work. That's all it mattered, because people want to be perfect. People want to be, I want to get all the work, the best camera. I want to get the best picture with all the angles. No. So for me, it was like, this is what I had. And he saw something in me, and he asked me, what do I want to do? And I told him straight up, I got admission in 2017 to ICP in New York, but I couldn't afford the rest of the tuition. So he's like, okay, interesting. So he's like, okay, what if you get the scholarship back? Would you go? And I said, yes, I will go. So he's like, okay, can you send an email to the head of the program and copy me? I said, okay. I mean, you said so I'll do that. I mean, in my mind, I was like, what's he trying to do? Is he going to tell them to give me a full scholarship or what? So I did that, and he sent them an email saying, hey, I met Paul in Ghana. He's an incredible photographer. Do you mind, can you give him the scholarship back? And what does that mean? So they said if I apply again, they will be willing to do that. So ICP was grateful enough to give me a scholarship. And then Brandon decided to pay for the rest of the tuition. And I was marveled because why would you do that? You just met somebody in Ghana and and then he's like, I believe in you. I believe in your talent. I believe in what I see in you. So I'm willing to pay the rest of the tuition and for you to be in New York and support you in any way possible. And for me, I wouldn't have been here without Brandon. Honestly, it wouldn't have been possible because who does that? And it didn't end there because for me, it was like, okay, you connected me to Chase Jarvis, you helped me pay the tuition. So, okay. But then during the visa process, here's Brandon helping me get a visa because it's very difficult. If people don't know, it's very difficult to get visa to United States of America. It's very, very difficult. Very, very difficult. So
yeah, it's hard to overstate how difficult it is.
Yes, people don't know. It's very difficult. You have to apply, wait for visa interview in 50 days. You're waiting for visa interview. Then you have to go join a queue, and then you get the visa. Even with that, you're not guaranteed. Even if you have all the scholarship, the support, you're not guaranteed of a visa to United States of America. So hey, so that you guys know. So Brandon,
very, very difficult.
Yeah. So Brandon helped me with all the documentations and everything through the process. He went all beyond everything. I'm just grateful. I'm just grateful to Brandon and Chase Jarvis.
Of course. No, like that's just for anyone who's, if it wasn't already obvious what an amazing human the creator Brandon Sanson behind Humans of New York is. That story underscores it, and there's so many stories like that I know about Brandon that a lot of others don't. And he's just such a kind, amazing. Of course, he's an insane talent, but just so kind-hearted that made all of this, the financial part possible. And it's important to know that had you not done that work, right, if you didn't, as you said already, if you didn't have a portfolio to show him on that day, even if it wasn't perfect, that you had, as you said, which I think is beautiful. This is the pull quote of all pull quotes. Like, I knew my past, I know what I'm doing now, my present, and I knew my future. I knew what it is that I wanted to do, and that you didn't let any haters or anyone talk you out of that. I think that is just so. It gives me chills to hear the clarity. And I think for so many people who find themselves in a position to, overcome huge obstacles. I mean, to have, limited financial support, to be halfway around the world and not have a camera, and then, arguably 3 months later be accepted to ICP, and then a year after that to actually be attending, is just a remarkable tribute to you, Paul, for that clarity. And I think that is, the saying goes, it's hard to get where you want to be if you don't know where you want to go. And it's hard to, it's a huge testament to you. So as you shared with us, you've just graduated from ICP, and I want to talk a little bit about what it's been like for you to be in New York. Obviously, that's a huge and vastly creative city. It's one of my favorite cities on the planet. What were some of your impressions when you got here, and how did you get to work?
So then again, Brandon. Then again, I remember when I got to New York, Brandon was in Japan, and when he came, he was texting me on Instagram. I didn't have a